Hey. Good evening, everyone.
We're going to start in 1 minute.
The October 13th, 2020 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Alcoffer.
Here.
Mr. Alcoffer is present. Mr. Ansello.
Here.
Mr. Ansello is present. Ms. Barnhart.
Here.
Ms. Barnhart is present. Mr. Baroth.
Here.
Mr. Baroth is present. Mr. Baines.
Here.
Mr. Baines is present. Ms. Boyce.
Present.
Ms. Boyce is present. Mr. Brew.
Here.
Mr. Brew is present. President Carbone.
Here.
President Carbone is present. Mr. Colby.
I'm here now.
Mr. Colby is present. Mr. Delahanty.
Here.
Mr. Delahanty is present. Mrs. DeFlorio.
Here.
Mrs. DeFlorio is present. Mr. Dondorfer.
Here.
Mr. Dondorfer is present. Mr. Felder.
Here.
Mr. Felder is present. Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell is present. Ms. Hassman.
Here.
Ms. Hassman is present. Mr. Hebert. Mr. Hebert.
Here.
Mr. Hebert is present. Mr. Chiafetlassi.
Here.
Mr. Chiafetlassi is present. Ms. Lamar.
Here.
Ms. Lamar is present. Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Lee is present. Mr. Mafucci.
Here.
Mr. Mafucci is present. Mr. Marinetti.
Here.
Mr. Marinetti is present. Mr. Morelli.
Here.
Mr. Morelli is present. Ms. Roman.
Here.
Ms. Roman is present. Ms. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Smith is present. Ms. Taylor.
Here.
Ms. Taylor is present. Mr. Turp.
Here.
Mr. Turp is present. Mr. Wilcox.
Here.
Mr. Wilcox is present. Mr. Wilt.
Here.
Mr. Wilt is present. Mr. Udelson.
Here.
Mr. Udelson is present.
We'll need to suspend the rules of the legislature for the purpose of prohibiting public in-person attendance in accordance with Executive Order 202.1, which was extended through November 3rd by Executive Order 202.67. We have a motion before you, which is moved by Legislator Brew and seconded by Legislator DeFlorio. This is a non-debatable motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Is the pastor on?
Is Pastor Melvin present? Appears not.
It appears our pastor isn't on the Zoom call, so we'll have a moment of silence, or maybe Legislator Ernest Flagler Mitchell, would you like to say a prayer?
I would love to. Father God, we thank you just for another chance to just get it right with you. We thank you, Father God, for each and every legislator that is in this chamber. We thank you for the people of Monroe County. We ask you, Father God, to continue to guide our footsteps, give us boldness, and give us the tools that we need to be able to change the lives of the people in our respective districts. Father God, we ask you to place your hand on each and every one of us and just continue, Father God, to give us the wisdom and the ability, Father God, to have the strength to move forward. And we just want to just thank you once again just for loving us and just giving us just the opportunity. And as we pray in Jesus' holy name, let everybody say amen, amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Legislator Flagler Mitchell. Thank you very much. Please stand as Legislator Howard Mafucci will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the
of America.
States of America and to the republic
Republic,
which stands
which
one
stands
nation under God,
God,
indivisible,
with
with liberty
liberty,
and justice for all.
all.
Your copies of the journals of day 19, September 8th, 2020, and day 20, September 22nd, 2020 are available through Novus Agenda without exception. The journal will stand approved as submitted. Before we go to the announcements, I'd like to welcome back Legislator Colby, Robert Colby. Welcome back, Legislator.
Look forward to working with all of you.
Member Colby, wait there.
Welcome back.
Do that now.
Thank you. This meeting has been closed to the public, and all legislators are participating via teleconference in accordance with Executive Order 202.1 and 202.67. In keeping with the legislature's tradition of openness, the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube through the legislature's official channel. Everyone participating via video or teleconference will please mute their devices except to obtain the floor or cast a vote. If seeking to obtain the floor, please simply state your name and wait for me to call on you before proceeding with your question or statement. The clerk will read the full title of each resolution and referral to avoid any confusion as to which item is before the legislature. All votes will be held via voice vote unless a roll call is requested. Legislators, the referrals submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle are available on Novus Agenda as well as online. There are no proclamations scheduled for this evening. There are no formal committee reports scheduled for this evening. And before we go to the public hearing, we have to wait until 6:15, so we'll adjourn in place for the next 7 minutes. Thank you.
Just an update for anyone who may be watching. Legislature is currently in recess waiting. Public start at 6:15 p.m. Thank you.
Ready? We will now recess for the purpose of holding a public hearing. Those wishing to address the legislature for the scheduled public hearing were instructed to call a conference line. That line has been patched into this meeting. I now declare open the public hearing entitled An Act of Local Law Amending the Monroe County Charter to Create a Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Is there anyone on the line wishing to address the legislature on this matter?
Hearing none, I declare this public hearing closed. We will now reconvene the October 13th, 2020 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature. We will now hold the public forum. Mr. Clerk.
The legislature received written comment from one individual wishing to participate in the public forum. From Joanne Sassa, I ask you legislators, in spite of all the pressures on you, to consider the long-term fate of Xerox Tower. Xerox abandoned the tower, Bob Morgan abandoned it, Larry Glazer's family abandoned it, now Anthony Galena buys it at a fire sale price and with our county's Comida help, wants to fill this huge, essentially empty structure with student housing and more office space. This is an area already suffering from a glut of office space and a checkered history of residential living. Galena will be the next person in line to abandon the tower. Galena's plan and Comida's support of the plan are a, quote, kick the can down the road, close quote, effort by you legislators and other important players to avoid the reality that we can no longer use nor afford the Xerox Tower. The tower should be demolished on this legislature's watch. Thank you. That concludes the public forum.
At this time, we will recess the October 13th, 2020 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature, and we will convene the Rochester Pure Waters District. Mr. Clerk, please read the first item on the agenda.
PWAB agenda item number 1, referral 20-0297, authorize implementation of a project labor agreement for the Frankie Van Laer Water Resource Recovery Facility capital improvement projects.
Moved by Legislator Don Dorfer, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is to adopt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. We'll now recess the Pure Waters Administrative Board for the Rochester Pure Waters District. The October 13th, 2020 meeting of the Legislature is reconvened. We will now proceed with the consideration of local laws. Will the clerk please read the first item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 20-0249.LL, providing that local law introduction number 330 of 2020 entitled amending the Monroe County Charter to create a Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion be lifted from the table.
Move
By
that
Legislator
Mr.
Taylor,
Second.
seconded by Legislator Delahanty. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item, please.
Item number 2, referral 20-0249.LL, providing that local law intro number 330 of 2020 entitled amending the Monroe County Charter to create a Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion be adopted.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is to adopt. Is there any discussion?
I want to second it too, Mr. President.
Okay, also seconded by Legislator Ernest Flagler Mitchell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Number 3.
Item number 3, referral 20-0285.LL, amending Monroe County Charter relating to term of office of members of county legislature.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is for introductory purposes only. Next item, please.
Item number 4, referral 20-0285.LL, providing that local law entitled amending Monroe County Charter relating to term of office of members of county legislature be tabled.
Move it, Mr. President.
By
Second.
Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislator Taylor. This is a motion to table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Number 5.
Item number 5, referral 20-0285.LL, fixing a public hearing on local law entitled amending Monroe County Charter relating to term of office of members of county legislature.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is to set the public hearing. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Who's a no?
Is that Legislator Baines?
Morelli.
Morelli? Do we have to go to roll call or just one?
If there's a, if that's the only no
I ask
vote,
for a
then-
roll call vote, please. This is Legislator Baines.
On the motion to set a public hearing, Mr. Brew.
Yes.
Mr. Brew votes yes. Mr. Felder.
Yes.
Mr. Felder votes yes. Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell votes yes. Mr. Alcoffer.
Yes.
Mr. Alcoffer votes yes. Mr. Ansello.
Yes.
Mr. Ansello votes yes. Ms. Barnhart.
No.
Ms. Barnhart votes no. Mr. Baroth.
No.
Mr. Baroth votes no. Mr. Baines.
No.
Mr. Baines votes no. Ms. Boyce.
Yes.
Ms. Boyce votes yes. Mr. Colby.
Yes.
Mr. Colby votes yes. Mr. Delahanty.
Yes.
Mr. Delahanty votes yes. Mrs. DeFlorio.
Yes.
Sorry, Mrs. DeFlorio?
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio votes yes. Mr. Dondorfer.
Yes.
Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Ms. Hassman.
No.
Ms. Hassman votes no. Mr. Hebert.
Yes.
Mr. Hebert votes yes. Mr. Keofet-Lacey.
Yes.
Mr. Keofet-Lacey votes yes. Ms. Lamar.
Yes.
Ms. Lamar votes yes. Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Lee votes yes. Mr. Mafucci.
No.
Mr. Mafucci votes no. Mr. Marinetti.
Yes.
Mr. Marinetti votes yes. Mr. Morelli.
No.
Mr. Morelli votes no. Ms. Roman.
No.
Ms. Roman votes no. Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Smith votes yes. Ms. Taylor.
Yes.
Taylor votes yes. Mr. Terp.
Yes.
Mr. Terp votes yes. Mr. Wilcox.
No.
Mr. Wilcox votes no. Mr. Wilt?
Yes.
Mr. Wilt votes yes. Mr. Udelson?
No.
Mr. Udelson votes no. President Carbone?
Yes.
President Carbone votes yes. 20-9, resolution passes.
We'll now proceed with the consideration of motions, resolutions, and notices. Will the clerk read the next item on the agenda, please?
Item number 6, referral 20-0152, adoption of a climate-smart communities resolution.
Move, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Udelson, seconded by legislator Ansello. Is
I'd
there any
like to second
discussion?
that as well, Mr. President.
Who's that, please?
I'm sorry.
Legislator Boyce.
Okay, also seconded by legislator Boyce,
I'd like to second it too, Mr. President.
seconded by legislator Ernest Flagler Mitchell. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 7, referral 20-0286, accepting grant from New York State Canal Corporation for New York State Canal Corporation Marine Patrol Matching Grant Program.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Boyce, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries. Next item.
Item number 8, referral 20-0287, accepting grant from New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee for Highway Safety Program.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Let me see here. Which one?
Item 8.
Number what?
Item 8, 0287.
Moved by legislator Boyce, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Next item.
Item number 9, referral 20-0288, accepting grant from County of Monroe Industrial Development Agency.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Wilt, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Next item.
Item number 10, referral 20-0289, accepting grant from Monroe County Industrial Development Corporation.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Wilt, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 11, referral 20-0290, authorizing contract with Greater Rochester Enterprise, Inc. for general operating expenses.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Wilt, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Next item.
Item number 12, referral 20-0291, authorizing contract with Finger Lakes Health System Agency, DBA Common Ground Health for data collection and program management services to support the Rock COVID Community Health Initiative.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Smith, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 13, referral 20-0292, authorizing acquisition of interest in real property for A-Route Road Highway Improvement Project at 526 and 571 A-Route Road in the town of Torrington.
Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Colby, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 14, referral 20-0293, authorizing acquisition of interest in real property for Moscow Road Highway Improvement Project at 829 and 874 Moscow Road in the town of Hamlin.
Second.
Moved by legislator Colby, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 15, referral 20-0294, authorizing acceptance of interest in real property for East Ridge Road Improvement Project in the town of Arundequoit.
Moved by legislator
Second.
Colby, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes.
this is Legislator Barros. I just want to say, I wanted to do it the last referral, but to welcome Legislator Colby back to the fold. It's been a while, and it's good to see his face again.
Thank you, Legislator Baroff. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. 16.
Item number 16, referral 20-0295, authorizing acceptance of interest in real property for Mill Road Phase 2 Improvement Project from Manitow Road to Larkin Creek in the town of Greece.
Second.
Moved by legislator Colby, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. 17.
Item number 17, referral 20-0296, authorizing implementation of project labor agreement for the Frank E. Van Layer wastewater resource recovery facility capital improvement projects.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Dondover, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 18, referral 20-0298, authorizing sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at 76 Worcester Road in the town of Greece.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item, please.
Item number 19, referral 20-0299, authorizing sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at Gordon Road in town of Sweden.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries. Next item.
Item number 20, referral 20-0300, authorizing sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at 888 Burritt Road in the town of Parma.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 21, referral 20-0301, directing the refund of certain Monroe County taxes levied and collected against property in town of Parrington.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Baines,
Go ahead, legislator Baines, you have the floor.
it's reassuring to know that when an institution makes an error, it corrects it and acknowledges its mistake. And I applaud the administration and all involved in making whole these taxpayers who live on Mason Road in the town of Parrington. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, legislator Baines. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 22, referral 20-0302, authorizing contract with Phoenix Business, Inc. for SAP hosting support services.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion on this item?
Mr. President, Legislator Flagler Mitchell.
Go ahead, legislator Flagler Mitchell, you have the floor.
Yes, what would they actually be doing?
This is Jennifer QC, Director of Information Services. Through you, Mr. President. Essentially, they would be hosting our SAP ERP system, which handles our many of our internal systems for the county, such as the general ledger, finance, our HR, systems, our work order systems for DES and DOT and others.
Thank you, Mr. President. Was this a bidded contract? Did y'all bid this?
Through you, Mr. President, this was an RFP.
Thank you, Mr. President, and through you, so nobody else applied to be the host for the county?
Through you, Mr. President, yes, a couple or several others applied. We shortlisted based on price primarily down to 3, and Phoenix was the ultimate winner.
Thank you, and just through the administration, did y'all consider MWBE certified companies when y'all put this RFP out? Through you, Mr. President?
Through you, Mr. President, hold on, I'm looking through the selection criteria. One moment, please. Through you, Mr. President, it's not on the actual selection committee, but I'm not sure if it was in any of the other verbiage on the RFP.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. President, I'm just gonna explain my vote. I'm gonna be voting no against this. We're talking about diversity and inclusion. We're talking about opportunities, and clearly minority-owned businesses aren't getting opportunities that they deserve to even be considered in such positions and such opportunities like this. So I'll be voting no on this. So.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. President. This is Legislator Lamar.
Go ahead, Legislator Lamar, you have the floor.
I just want to explain my vote as well. I really have to echo what Legislator Flagler Mitchell just said. It seems like all year we've been talking about diversity and inclusion, and we're almost saying it at every legislative meeting. And for some reason, it's still not getting across to those who are in positions to make sure that this is happening. So I'll also be voting no for that reason. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. President, this is Legislator Brew.
Go ahead, Legislator Brew, you have the floor.
Yes, I'd also like to explain my vote. I'll also be voting no on this because I am in agreement with Legislator Flagler Mitchell and Legislator Lamar, and that the administration has heard the request from the very first meeting up until this one regarding the solicitation of MWBE businesses, and to hear that wasn't part of the acquisition process is very disappointing. So I will also be voting no on this measure.
Mr. President, Legislator Baines.
Go ahead, Legislator Baines, you have the floor.
Through you, Mr. President, I'd like to ask the administration what its policies are and what they have been and what their thinking is with respect to this particular RFP. Could you clarify, please, administration, through you, Mr. President?
Mr. President, if you could give us one moment, please.
Well, in that one moment, Legislator Baines, could you clarify the question? Because I'm not really sure what you asked.
Thank you, Mr. President. What I'm asking is for the administration to be clear with respect to the policy regarding MWBE, regarding an RFP of this type and what the past protocol has been going back to prior administrations. And what they're thinking is respect to this particular RFP.
Thank you. I understand the question now.
Okay, through you, Mr. President, this is Jeff McCann. Sorry it took us a minute to pull our file and look at this. The policy that we are following is a procurement policy that was adopted by this honorable body in 2014. The minority contracting consideration and credit is something that is given only for construction projects that are related to county work. And again, I would stress this is a policy that was adopted by this body in 2014. And again, I believe when this came up last time with the Brown and Brown contract, which was, I guess I would also point out, was reinstated without any further questions or clarification on our part. This is something that is a priority for this administration, and I know it might not seem like a big deal, but the month delay that we had with this body approving the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion really is something that will fall under the jurisdiction of that department and that department. And as we move forward, we want to have a comprehensive review of all of our purchasing policies. I would point out that this RFP was advertised in the traditional ways that we've advertised all of our RFPs. And again, that also includes something that this administration supported and instituted earlier this year, where we expand the publishing notices that are included in publications that have not traditionally been used by the county in an effort to reach a more diverse set of businesses with that. So that I would take it will answer Legislator Baines's questions. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. President, I have a follow-up.
Go ahead.
Through you to the administration, just to be sure on such an important issue before I vote, am I hearing properly that this is a long-standing practice that goes back prior to the current county executive, and that it is the intent of the current county executive and his administration to review and change this policy regarding MWBE from being only based on construction projects to looking at every opportunity for any RFP that might include an MWBE company? Am I understanding that correctly, please? Through you to the administration, please.
Through you, Mr. President, that is absolutely correct. And again, that was a large part of the idea behind creating the new office that was just approved tonight. Again, we want to increase our efforts to diversify our workforce by all means, but also an equally big piece of this, if not a larger piece, is also expanding the people who we do business with, so that people who are not traditionally and have not traditionally been represented in county contracting are included in that. And one point I would also like to make through you, Mr. President, to Legislator Baines, is the fact, much like the delay in enacting the Brown and Brown contract. Fortunately, that was only a 2-week delay, and my understanding is it didn't really have practical implications for us. We're able to meet our deadlines that we need to make. Off the top of my head, I'm not really sure what the repercussions of this would be, but again, we came before the legislature with this referral because we need the services that are provided, and SAP is critical to county operations and also county functions. And again, I would also just like to point out that this administration stands ready to meet on a regular basis with anybody who wants to meet with us, including the legislature leadership, to discuss this. And by all means, we have committee of the whole meetings so that if issues like this come up and are concerns, by all means, we would welcome the opportunity to address them at those meetings, and then we can pull more information and get answers for you rather than have these come up at a full legislature meeting. And now there's going to be a delay if this referral isn't approved tonight in the county obtaining services that are necessary for our normal operation. Thank you.
Mr. President, I'd like to explain my vote. This is Legislator Baines.
Go ahead.
It strikes me that given the long history of this legislature in terms of the prior administration's treatment of such matters, that in the efforts on behalf of the current administration to change the procurement and the contracting process, and in light of the fact that this particular measure is something that there is a certain expediency and in fact exigency that this matter be approved, I will, despite my affinity for and agreement with my fellow legislators regarding their concern with MWBE being provided an opportunity, I will be voting yes on this referral. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
President.
Any further discussion?
Mr. President,
Who's that?
Minority Leader Felder.
Go ahead, Minority Leader Felder.
Same thing we said when the last referral came up with Brown and Brown. Legislator Flagler and I have been speaking with the administration at least as early as January, and probably even before the county executive's inauguration, about the need to deal with MWBE and contracting. The administration has been in office now for 10 months. It's now October 13th. And the idea that we need to wait until there's a diversity department put a line into an RFP about, or 2 lines in RFP about MWBE is preposterous. It should have already been done. And try to throw this back on the legislature and say that because the Office of Diversity and Inclusion was delayed, or because of anything else, is just ridiculous. It should have been done already. They know the concern is there. We raised the concern, and have been raising the concern since January. And now we're in October, and we're still being told, well, once we get this department taking care of this person appointed, then we'll start to deal with it. Some things don't need a whole department. It just needs to be the chief executive say, this is the way it's going to be, and make it happen. And I'm disappointed that it hasn't happened yet.
Mr. President?
Is that Legislator Colby?
Yes,
Go ahead, Legislator Colby, you have the floor.
thank you. I'll be voting no, but going back to legislation in 2014, I believe I was on the floor at that time, and I couldn't pull up the legislation I was trying to here a few minutes ago as this discussion started, but I do believe that legislation says at minimum only the work type laws or contracts need to be done. Doesn't mean that you couldn't apply that standard to other types of contracts like we are talking about here tonight. So that was a minimum, not an only legislation that we passed back in 2014. we left it open to the administration at that time to expand it into other areas as they felt needed. And so tonight they could have expanded it. They weren't limited to doing it only on the other projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Colby.
Mr. President, I'd like to explain my vote.
Who's that, please?
Howard Mafucci.
Go ahead, Legislator Mafucci.
Thank you. I will be supporting this. I will be voting for it. It passed unanimously at our committee meeting last time, 28-0. The policy was created in 2014. I'm sure there's some people sitting here who were legislators then, and they didn't change it then. It seems necessary to happen. Clearly, the administration is committed to making sure that better policies are put in place. I'm sure we could enact something tonight if we wanted to, because apparently it was legislative action in 2014. So I don't want to delay this contract. It's necessary services, so I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Legislator Barnhart.
Go ahead, Legislator Barnhart.
Through the president to the administration, I have two questions. The first one's to the administration. The second one, I'm not sure, but I'll ask it. What is the impact? It looks like this won't pass. So what is the impact if this doesn't pass? And the second question is, what's the remedy? Do we put this back out to bid? What is the remedy? How do we fix it so that this work can go forward?
For you, Mr. President, this is Jennifer Cusey, Director of Information Services. If this were not to pass, let me back up. The current vendor contract expires next month. So if we don't have a new vendor in place, we're going to lose our ability to access SAP. So it is critical that this gets passed, obviously efficiently. As far as a remedy, we have been doing this the same way for a long time. And again, I'm pretty sure there is language for MB and E minorities, vendors, et cetera, in everything that we look for. So we're not excluding anyone by any means. But going forward, the next time we have any type of technological RFP, we can certainly, add that in immediately. I don't see any reason why we can't include that as additional criteria, starting with the next RFP coming through the IT organization.
Through the president to the administration, some people may not understand what SAP is. Can you explain more fully what this contract is for and its impact on the public? And I appreciate your response about the remedy issue. If this isn't, I don't think this is going to pass. So what are we going to do specifically to move this forward so we don't have the impact that you're describing?
Sure. Through you, Mr. President, SAP is an ERP system called Enterprise Resource Planning System. It's a very complex integrated system. And again, it supports the county in its ability to manage the finances, manage our HR, our human resources, payroll, be able to make purchasing payments, invoice vendors, solicit or begin work orders and do work orders through DES and DOT. It's essentially a core system used to maintain and allow county personnel to do our internal work. If this does not pass, what we have right now is an extended contract with the current vendor, but that was intended to just bridge us so that we could have time to transfer the data, if you will, from the old vendor to the new vendor. Again, if this doesn't go through, like I said, we're kind of we need to do something because right now we don't have a vendor after a couple of months. And again, we don't have full support after the middle of November. So as far as remedy, I don't know. I'm at a loss right now. We'll be in trouble, actually.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Okay, Legislator Flagler Mitchell,
Yes.
go ahead, Legislator.
Hi, thank you once again. I just want to make a comment on my vote. I'm voting no. I mean, Legislator Felder said it correct. For 10 months, every time we come to one of these contracts and we're asked, is MWBE considered or even had the opportunity? You know, we didn't say that you had to give them the position, but the mere fact that it's not even on your radar, and to make us feel like the only type of opportunities minority businesses get is construction work is a slap in our face, and it's unacceptable. We've been saying this. We said this for the Brown and Brown, and one of my colleagues said it went through without anything. You know why? Because they called and they have something. It was not put in the RFP. So here we go again with the same thing. It's a slap in our face when we sit here as legislators and the same and all y'all can say is this is past practice. Listen, we want to get rid of past practices. Past practices is what not giving us stuff that we need in our communities. So at the end of the day, past practice don't mean nothing. Everything that been going on there have been past practices all over the place. And nobody follows that. Nobody. Okay. So, you know, to hear folks say, well, past practice, that's just talk.
It's an
because
excuse.
past practice, y'all barely even follow. So I'm voting no. And I hope the rest of you all vote no. So that at the end of the day, you can go back and do another RFP and give MWBE certified contractors an opportunity to bid on this job.
Legislator Barnhart.
Legislator Barnhart, you have the floor.
Through the president to the administration, I really appreciate everything that Legislator Flagler Mitchell just said. I support efforts to be more inclusive in our contracts going forward, and I really do understand the point that's being made here, and I support it. If we do what he is suggesting, to go forward with a new RFP, how long does that take? Can we take that time? And so that's just my concern and why I'm inclined to vote yes on this particular contract, because it sounds like a very, very big deal if the county doesn't have a vendor. And so I'm hoping the administration can explain that again, if we go out to an RFP again.
Through the president, this is Jennifer Cusey, Director of Information Services again. It takes several months to reissue an RFP, go through the vendor selection process. And then months at, potentially a month or two after that to even do a negotiation to get a contract, et cetera.
We can't use the current vendor for another 6 months?
I don't know. We've negotiated a few months, and that was a phased out approach where their resources are going to be diminished every month, kind of going over the next few months, where the intent was to be out of the current vendor's location by the end of January. So we would have to go back to the current vendor, attempt to negotiate some sort of an extended contract with them. Again, it's going to end up costing us more because they're already charging us more for the temporary contract in order just to do the transition. So I don't really have an answer for you. I know it won't be very straightforward. We'll have to get our legal department involved to figure out how to do that.
Legislator Morelli.
Yes, Legislator Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, it's my understanding that this system is the way that we pay our county employees, as well as pay vendors who do work with the county. So for us to delay this, implementing this contract, will this have an effect on our employees potentially not being paid, as well as vendors not receiving funds and unable to pay their employees as well?
Through you, Mr. President, potentially, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Legislator DeFlorio.
Well, I just have a question. Potentially, that's kind of vague.
Yeah, through you, Mr. President, the reason is it would depend on, we would have to go back to the current vendor, try to negotiate another, an extension to the current contract. Like I said, they've already planned on not having us as a customer or client anymore. So they may have already started moving their people onto other contracts. I don't know. We would have to check into that. If they don't agree to an extension with our contract, then we have no place to go. And that would mean our system we wouldn't have an SAP system. We wouldn't have any way to conduct business through that system, meaning we wouldn't be able to do any of our finances. We wouldn't be able to do payroll. We wouldn't be able to do purchasing, anything.
Thank you. So what you're saying, tough but not impossible.
I'm sorry?
Tough but not impossible. Who's next?
Mr. President, it actually sounds like she said that it could be impossible to do if we don't get an agreement. So I'd say that your suggestion that it's not impossible is pretty egregious when she just indicated that this would be a massive problem.
Well, you must have been listening to something else, Legislator Morelli, because that's not the way I heard it. But you have your opinion. I didn't think it was egregious. I didn't hear it that way. Any further discussion?
It's a good thing that you don't rely on a paycheck from the county, where many people do rely on a paycheck from the county, and that may be that they don't get paid. So I hope you can sleep knowing that people might not be able to get paid.
I hope you can sleep too with what you say.
Legislator Roman. Legislator DeFlorio requested the floor.
Okay, Legislator DeFlorio.
Thank you.
Legislator DeFlorio.
Thank you. Through the president to the administration, it's honestly distressing to me to hear, since, again, to repeat Legislator Flagler Mitchell's statement that since January, the administration, they've been asking the administration has continued to provide lip service to the desire to increase diversity and inclusion in the county workforce. And then to hear that it'll be easy. Our next RFP, it's a couple of simple sentences. Well, why weren't those simple sentences included months ago when this RFP was first generated?
Through you, Mr. President.
I guess that's my question.
Yeah, through you, Mr. President, this is Jennifer Cusey again, if I may. As I've said a couple of times here, it's possible that those actually were in the RFP. I have to go back and check. We have never limited this. In fact, every time an RFP comes through, we do look at that and we would welcome that. To be honest, the majority of the companies that reply to these are Indian-owned companies, and that's just the way it is. I don't know if they're considered minority businesses or not. To be honest, I haven't checked that at all. But we have not. It has not been a category, but it hasn't been an exclusion at all. In fact, it would be something that we would certainly want to promote if that information was presented to us.
Mr. President, this is Legislator Lamar.
The floor, please. Through the president to the administration. So you're not excluding, but you also have not actively gone out and tried to elicit minority or to include that in your RFP. So again, it is troubling to me to hear that although the administration keeps saying that that's their goal, unless you actually are actively seeking it, never going to achieve that goal.
Through you, Mr. President, maybe Legislator DeFlorio, missed my earlier comments. After years of not being included, we expanded who actually gets advertisements to solicit our RFPs, and that includes the minority business reporter, as well as several other non-traditional participants in the county procurement policy in terms of who we advertise with. And to somehow suggest that we're playing lip service with this is offensive, particularly in light of this body delaying the implementation of the department that would really be spearheading our efforts to do that. But notwithstanding that, again, it was our intention to have a well thought out policy that was coordinated by the person who was going to be in charge of that department. What the message that we're picking up from this legislative body is that that is not the case. I can assure you that we will sit down tomorrow morning and we will work on making changes to our procurement policy to include this. Again, it was our thought all along that we would do this in a deliberative, thoughtful way that would be comprehensive of a number of different items, but that's something we will definitely take a look at. And but to somehow suggest that this administration is paying lip service when you look at the history of what has gone on in county government and how to previous administrations, this hasn't even been an item that has been on their radar, is categorically false.
So through the president to the administration, it wasn't my words that stated that it was a simple 2-line statement in an RFP. I did hear your words that you've expanded where you're posting RFPs, and I appreciate that. However, again, if you're measuring it and you're not looking for it in your RFP, then you don't know if you're getting it or not. So again, those weren't my words; those were the administration's words. When was this RFP sent out?
Through the administration, I don't have the exact date, but several months ago. And this was in the works way back in the spring. So I would just have to say it really, we were anticipating on doing this before the new administration even came on board. In fact, the RFP may have been written before the new administration even came on board.
So through the president to the administration, it's fair to say then that the Office of Inclusion and Diversity Creation had nothing to do with this RFP. And the fact that it was delayed a month had nothing to do with any of what we're talking about this evening. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. President. No, that's absolutely correct. And I never characterized that office of having anything to do with where we are today, and the fact that Ms. Cusey has indicated that this is an RFP that may have been written by the prior administration, I think just underscores the point that I was making earlier.
Mr. President.
It may have been written by the previous administration, but was sent out by the previous administration?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't hear that.
You indicated that it perhaps could have been written under the previous administration, but was it sent out under the previous administration?
No, it was not sent out under the previous administration.
So it's fair to say there was an opportunity to change the wording if there had been a desire to do so.
Through the president, yes. However, we were dealing with a pandemic at the time, so I think, you know, there's only so much we can do.
And through you, Mr. President, there was also numerous opportunities for this legislative body to amend a resolution too.
Legislator Baines.
Right, yeah. It's Legislator Roman, then Legislator Lamar, then Legislator someone else.
Legislator Lamar, you have the floor. You were next.
I just have a few comments for the administration. So through you to the administration, it's really unfair to come here today and make it seem like us not voting in favor of what you did or didn't do would be the reason why employees will not get paid. This should have, if there were some issues, this should have been brought to us way before 30 days before the contract was over with. And the only reason that we would be voting no, some of us will be voting no, is because of lack of leadership or lack thereof, or your department missing steps. Furthermore, I'm very concerned about what Ms. Kusi said about not knowing if an Indian-owned company is a minority-owned business, because that could be potentially what half the problem is. And maybe when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, and not, it just does not stop or just does not start with making sure that companies are minority-owned business, but also making sure that the people who are in place to make those selections know what a minority-owned business is. Thank you.
President.
I think Legislator Roman has been trying to get in for a while.
Legislator Roman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Felder. Thank you. One of the questions is through you, Mr. President, to the administration. Did any of the 28 individuals who voted for this 2 or 3 weeks ago ask any questions prior to today?
Through you, Mr. President, no, I do not believe so.
Okay, thank you. And I actually have wanted to mention the minority reporter. I'm going to also explain my vote right now. It's really interesting to me that a few months ago, when we were having conversations about expanding our reach into the community, many people on the other side of the aisle, in essence, didn't even know what the minority reporter was. I'm so glad to see that we are having a conversation about continuing to reach communities that need this type of work. But for now, I completely support the fact that we need to continue to do this work. I'm happy to hear that tomorrow morning something will be thought through because, as was mentioned, there are some practices that absolutely have to stop. But right now, we need to ensure that the county has the services that they need to continue to ensure that our IT, HR, and people are getting paid. So I will be voting yes, and thank you.
Legislator Udelson.
Yeah, Legislator Udelson, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to echo the comments that Minority Leader Roman just made. And I'm concerned, although I don't question the advocacy of my colleagues for arguing for these principles, which I think we're all in favor of. I am troubled, though, that when this was brought up at the Committee of the Whole, none of these questions were raised. It was approved 28-0. And in the 3 weeks since then, I don't believe any of the questions have been asked. So I will vote in favor of it because I think the opportunity to ask questions was provided, was there, and it really makes me question the timing of these objections right now. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further discussion?
This is Legislator Hasman.
Go ahead, Legislator Hasman.
I'd like to explain my vote. I'll be voting yes this evening. Just as my other colleagues have mentioned, this passed 28-0 a couple weeks ago, and no questions were raised. I support, as so many of my colleagues have mentioned tonight, I support MWBE businesses, and I'm encouraged to hear that the administration will be meeting tomorrow we can remedy this on future contracts and RFPs. But I'm voting yes because I am deeply, deeply concerned about the county's ability to do business and our greatest resource, the county employees getting paid, and the impact on our local businesses in the county. So for that reason, I'll be voting yes.
Yeah, Mr. President, this is Legislator Brew.
Go ahead, Legislator Brew.
I'm leaning towards moving to table this motion in order to give the administration some time to go back and examine their contract and ensure that the MBE requirement may or may not have been included None of us want to shut down the county. And if there was an opportunity where they can prove that they have met those requirements, then I would not be opposed to convening a special legislative meeting to move this forward. But as tonight, in the absence of this language and the administration not knowing the exact content of their own RFP, I would say that we need to table this motion.
Is there a second?
So I do move to table.
Is there a second to that tabling?
I second.
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 All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to the tabling motion?
No.
Who's the no?
Who's the no?
Morelli.
Do we need a roll call vote, or is it 28-1?
Do we need a roll call vote?
No.
Okay, Legislator Morelli votes no,
28-1.
28-1. Oh, very good. I hope Legislator Morelli can sleep tonight with that no vote. Let's go to the next item.
Item number 23, referral to
Mr. President,
0-0309.
Mr. President, I understand that you don't.
For 2020, entitled Accepting Grant from United States Treasury for Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act to require filing of weekly expenditure reports with legislature.
Don't move, Mr. President.
Moved by Legislator Brew, moved by Legislator Hebert, seconded by Legislator Brew. Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there a discussion?
Any opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, roll call vote.
Mr. Brew?
Yes.
Point of information, what vote is this again, please?
Yeah, I'm confused.
I'm confused.
This is item number 23.
I was reading the title, but was being interrupted.
I did not hear that. I wanted to speak to it, but I could not hear it.
Who's that?
Legislator
Thank you.
Barrow.
Legislator
Okay,
Barr.
Legislator Baroff, you have the floor.
Okay, and just to be clear, we're talking about item 23, correct?
Yes,
The last
item
item
20.
on the agenda, yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I really didn't hear it. Okay. Anyhow,
Okay, that's all right. You were being interrupted as usual. Go ahead.
okay. Anyhow, I wanted to speak towards this in terms of why I'm going to be voting the way I vote. I think that we have been working with an administration that has gone out of its way to be as transparent as possible. I also think that, governance is a two-way street. I think that we have an obligation not just to ask questions, but to provide an opportunity for questions to be answered. I think that we're doing this in a very non-productive way. I think that letters going back and forth is not helpful. I think that this is a relatively ham-fisted way of getting information that we, in fact, should have. I think we should have this information. I also think that this is something that we should have done, if it was a problem, a while back. It should not have been done as a matter of urgency. However, I recognize the fact that given there's only another 10 weeks where care funding can be spent, that in that sense, there's a time constraint here. That is, quote, urgent. I understand that. I am going to vote in support of this. I am very unhappy with what led to making this happen. I am very unhappy that the leadership of the majority caucus has refused to meet with the administration to ask these questions, to get clarification, to get the answers. I understand that some of the questions have been asked and perhaps the answers were not fully satisfactory, but we're only addressing it in letter form, which is crazy. No other majority did not meet with the administration that I know of for years. And there were two meetings at the beginning of this year and then they stopped. We need to reconvene those meetings so we're not forced to do matter of urgency that could have been avoided. I will vote for this, but I am ashamed of how we got here. As a body, we need to do more than just send letters back and forth, especially if we're getting invitations to meetings that we just ignore as a body. So I'm voting yes, but I'm very unhappy that I have to do that because I do think it's a legitimate question. What are we spending on cares? I think that's a legitimate question. But it's not as though we've been asking in a way and having a conversation regarding how we are doing this. We're pretending we've had a conversation. We haven't. Let us meet in person. Thank you.
Mr. President, Legislator Baines.
Legislator Barnhart.
I think Legislator Barnhart spoke up first, Legislator Baines. You can have the floor right after her.
Thank you.
Thank you. Legislator Barath said he's unhappy to vote yes. I'm unhappy to vote no, and I'd like to explain why. I want to thank Legislator Hebert for his diligence in monitoring CARES funding. I really appreciate his questions. I've actually learned a lot from his work on this issue. I'm very concerned, however, with legislation introduced on the same day we have to vote without any discussion through the committee process. I don't have any problem with frequent, regular reporting of financial information, and I understand the urgency surrounding knowing what we're doing with CARES funding as this comes to a close. But neither, to my knowledge, does the administration have a problem with this. The administration has been extremely transparent when legislators ask for information, and if it hasn't been, I would love to hear very specific incidents where they have not answered your questions. I will be voting no only because of the way this was introduced and the lack of discussion. I support Legislator Hebert's intent to monitor these funds through the year's end, and I am confident the administration will provide CARES reports and other reports that we request. I'm also confident the administration will meet with all legislators to discuss concerns. I would be very disappointed if that ever changes. I don't have reason to believe it will. And I would gladly vote yes on this if it came through the committee process. So that's why I will be voting no.
Legislator Baines?
Thank you, Mr. President. The confusion regarding the nature of this particular referral was because of a series of individuals speaking over each other. And I want to say to you, Mr. President, I felt your comments toward Legislator Morelli were gratuitous. And I felt like Clerk Jack's smirking throughout the process, et cetera, has lowered us as a group and as a body. And I would appreciate it if you would show, I would appreciate if you would show more discretion in your comments.
What did you think about his comments to me? Did you find those egregious or they were okay?
Well, you responded.
It seems like it's all one-sided.
No, let me answer then. You want me to answer, President Carbone?
Yeah, go ahead.
You want me to answer your question?
Yes.
I would love to answer it. Because when he made that comment, you responded. And now all these minutes later, you throw another cheap shot at him. We're better than this. You're better than this, President Carbone.
Your team threw the first cheap shot. Are you through with, are you done speaking?
I think I made my point.
Legislator
nice.
Hebert.
You have the floor, Legislator Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make some comments that frankly I didn't want to make publicly, but the questions that have come up concerning the willingness of the administration to meet and why we are doing it the way we are. I just want to give you some additional background that I've kept to myself and frankly, some of our leadership. Leader Brew knows about this. Leader Brew and I, as part of a letter and a communication we sent to the administration, and pardon me for not remembering exact dates, but back in something like June, asked for a meeting with the administration. It was scheduled. I had to cancel it because I had my hand surgery scheduled the same day. And we asked to reschedule it and we're told, no, we don't think we need to meet with you on this. That led to a number of other letters and written correspondence since the administration was not willing to meet with us. And this is documented, so people can attempt to refute it. But the fact of the matter is there are written letters and communications between us to this effect. And because of that, only because of that, I'm at the point right now where we're out of time. And we are out of time because of the deadline of December 30th. And things that I've learned since then, for example, this past Friday, there was a NACO, National Association of Counties, educational session on this exact topic, the CRF funding, and it was held by NACO with Department of Treasury personnel participating. One of the big things that came out of that was that you cannot use these CRF funds for any service or good to be used after December 30th of 2020. So this coming December 30th. If you recall at our last meeting, we were told that the administration couldn't tell us how much was left because this, I forget the exact reason, but my recollection is that the system wasn't set up to make that an easy thing to do. Okay, I understand. Could it have been? Yeah, I know a lot about SAP. I worked for 27 years with IBM, and I had major customers install SAP during that time. So could it have been set up so a simple one button push and probably 15 seconds of somebody's time would give us the reports we need? Yeah, I think it could have been, but it wasn't. Okay, people make mistakes. People don't forecast. And in the administration's defense, quite honestly, there have been a massive number of changes on the reporting requirements and the way the reports are done. And I commiserate with them on trying to get, but that doesn't change the fact that we have an unknown amount of money still left to be utilized. And we have no information on what the plan is to utilize it. I actually have a meeting with Mr. McCann and our CFO tomorrow, and have a long list of things I'm going to be going through them with. It's scheduled for an hour and a half from 3 to 4:30. And I appreciate them finally taking that meeting. But if we had done this before, and quite frankly, I asked when I asked for that meeting for it to be scheduled before tonight's full legislature. And no, it had to be after tonight's full legislature. Okay, schedules being what they are, I can give them an excuse. But when this comes up, I think it needs to come out in the public. I guess you want to hear it. That's my story. I'm sticking to it, and it's documented. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Legislator Hebert. Any further discussion?
Legislator Mafucci, I just want to explain my vote as well.
Go ahead, Legislator Mafucci.
I actually can't support this because once again, I was surprised at 1:15 on the day of a meeting with a matter of urgency that doesn't look like a matter of urgency to me. I just think we need more time. So that's where I stand.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Legislator Flagler Mitchell?
Yes, I just want to explain my vote as well. You know, we've been dealing with all types of protests, and in the protests, members of the community is asking for transparency. You know, I don't see nothing wrong with this bill because it ensures transparency for us and to make sure that if we're asked by our constituents, we know what's going on. And so I'm going to be voting in favor of this because this is that season. People want transparency, and you can't be transparent on one end and then on the other end want to kind of say, well, this come too early. So I'm going to be voting yes for this.
Thank you, Legislator Flagler Mitchell. Discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Legislator Felder?
Yes, it is. The question of the meetings we were having with the administration, I didn't cancel them. Did you cancel them, Mr. President?
No, I did not.
You cancel them, Legislator Brooke? So I'm trying to figure out. You know, you thought I haven't met with them. I can't remember the last time. And so, and that's even before that this nonsense about the leadership of the caucus came up. It's been a long time, even before that. And so I don't, you know, the fact is we need to make sure that we exercise proper oversight over what's going on here. And the questions that people have, and I believe requests that people have made that have been rebuffed and other things, and we need to know what's going on. And that's just the way it is. Nothing personal, just the way it is.
Legislator Baines.
Go ahead, Legislator Baines.
I direct my question to Legislator Hebert and the other 14 Republican members of the majority. Do you recall, Legislator Hebert, or I directed also to the members of the minority, when the minority members of the caucus asked for a meeting with the prior administration and received a 1.5-hour meeting in which the prior administration or any prior administration detailed every aspect of its financial dealings and its spending. Do you recall that that was a courtesy extended the way it will be extended tomorrow to my esteemed colleague Legislator Hebert?
Legislator Hebert? Legislator Hebert?
Go ahead, Legislator Hebert.
Legislator Baines, in response to your question, I was unaware that such a request or meeting even happened.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Legislator Hebert. And through you, Mr. President, to Legislator Hebert. So Legislator Hebert, if you were to learn that members of the minority had requested meetings with the administration or in the prior administrations and asked for responsiveness, transparency, clarity regarding matters of this sort, would you be surprised to learn that never happened? Because it sounds like the administration is responding to your concerns, Legislator Hebert. Isn't that true?
Legislator Hebert?
Yes, go ahead.
Doctor, through you to Legislator Baines, in response to his question, the answers that well, first of all, I would have to go count, but I believe that there were 7 questions that I asked in the last committee of the whole that were not responded to at all in the response I received from Mr. McCann. So no, they are not being responsive to all requests. Secondly, and again, this is the way I'm going to couch this without a lot of time to think about it, which is pretty direct. That's my Navy commander stuff in me. Responses we received in a couple of cases were pretty thorough. In a couple of cases were very evasive. I think of a submarine's evasive maneuvering to avoid surface ships in a combat situation. I kind of felt like I was dealing with a submarine. And in some cases were, in at least one case, I believe it was completely inaccurate. So that's my response to your question, Legislator Baines.
Legislator Hebert, I appreciate both your analogy and your direct response. I'll be interested to hear from members of the minority in the prior administrations as to whether or not they received any response from their requests for clarity and information. And I want to declare that I am deeply appreciative of the administration's willingness to spend 90 minutes with Legislator Hebert tomorrow. And I want to echo Legislator Barnhart's comments that I have deep admiration for Legislator Hebert's work ethic, his focus on financial matters, and I respect the fact that you are playing your oversight role in a way that has not been played in the past by members of your party. Thank you, Legislator Hebert.
Okay, let's go to a roll call vote.
Legislator Hebert?
Yes, Legislator Hebert.
I just wanted to respond to Mr. Baines' comment that it hasn't been played in the past. It may not have been played in the past in public, but in my time in the legislature, which began, this is the 5th year, many of the questions that we asked were not asked in the forums of committees or the full legislature meeting like the one going on now, but they were asked inside closed doors, and we did receive information as requested. So they were being asked, they're just not as publicly as they are nowadays. And again, I would be happy to take many of these things offline, but when you can't get a meeting, it's kind of hard to do. That's it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, let's go to a roll call vote. Jack?
Mr. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Brew votes yes. Mr. Felder?
Yes.
Mr. Felder votes yes. Mr. Flagler Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell votes yes. Mr. Alcoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Alcoffer votes yes. Mr. Ansello?
Yes.
Mr. Ansello votes yes. Ms. Barnhart?
No.
Ms. Barnhart votes no. Mr. Baroth?
Yes.
Mr. Baroth votes yes. Mr. Baines?
No.
Mr. Baines votes no. Ms. Boyce?
Yes.
Ms. Boyce votes yes. Mr. Colby?
Yes.
Mr. Colby votes yes. Mr. Delahanty?
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Delahanty votes yes. Mrs. DeFlorio.
Yes.
Mr. DeFlorio votes yes. Mr. Dondorfer.
Yes.
Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Ms. Hassman.
No.
Ms. Hassman votes no. Mr. Hebert.
Yes.
Mr. Hebert votes yes. Mr. Keofet-Lacey.
Yes.
Mr. Keofet-Lacey votes yes. Ms. Lamar. Ms. Lamar. Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Lee votes yes. Mr. Mafucci.
No.
Mr. Mafucci votes no. Mr. Marinetti.
Yes.
Mr. Marinetti votes yes. Mr. Morelli.
No.
Mr. Morelli votes no. Ms. Roman.
No.
Ms. Roman votes no. Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Smith votes yes. Ms. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Taylor votes yes. Mr. Turp.
Yes.
Mr. Turp votes yes. Mr. Wilcox.
No.
Mr. Wilcox votes no. Mr. Wilt.
Yes.
Mr. Wilt votes yes. Mr. Udelson.
No.
Mr. Udelson votes no. President Carbone.
Yes.
President Carbone votes yes. Ms. Lamar. Ms. Lamar might be muted.
Yes.
Lamar.
Something's wrong
votes
with my
yes.
connection. Yes.
Apologies. 21-8, a resolution passes.
Thank you. There being no unfinished business,
President.
legislator.
Mr. President,
Yes.
we've been going back and forth with this nonsense about the who the leader of the Democratic caucus is and this fake vote that some of us claim they took. There was a not supposed 9-5 vote that never occurred. Outside of the fact that the charter nor the rules of the legislature allow for a leader to be removed prior to the end of their term. But when I got received my pay last week, it was short. And evidently someone in the administration took it upon themselves to change my title and reduce my stipend. Because I know the form came to the legislative clerk, and Mr. Moffitt didn't sign it. So I'm trying to figure out on what authority, since the administration has zero authority over the legislature, and regardless of whatever Mr. Bello wants to claim, who he claims he's going to recognize, or whatever anyone else says in the administration, the executive branch has no authority over the legislature. And so if you say that I'm the leader of the Democratic caucus and I'm the minority leader, and that's what it is, and I would like to make sure that my money is returned to me.
It's not your money. A majority of the Democrats do not.
Legislator Barnhart.
Say that your verses are here. So we have the authority, not Dr. Carbone.
Barnhart. Legislator Barnhart, excuse me 1 second, a little decorum here. Now, you're saying, Legislator Felder, that
you've said that you don't want to be a part of it.
Mr. President.
So I guess this question goes to the administration or human resources. Under what authority or whose direction did you take to reduce Legislator Felder's pay from a minority leader to a legislator? That's to the administration or human resources.
Thank you, Mr. President. We did it on the authority that 9 of the 10 members of the Democratic caucus have recognized Ms. Roman as the duly elected leader of that body. And with that, we wanted that to accurately reflect that title and make sure that she was being compensated for the position that she was duly elected by 9 of the 10 members of the Democratic caucus to do.
In the county,
Mr. President.
Hold on, excuse me, Mr. President, through you. Where in the county charter does it give the executive branch of the county of Monroe County the authority to interfere in matters of the legislature?
Take it to court, Mr. Felder. Take it to court.
I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you. To the administration. Where in the county charter does it give you the authority to interfere with executive matters? Because remember, when the Cable Act came up last year, I was the one who led the charge against that because I felt the legislature was interfering with the executive branch. And I hear you doing the same thing. On regardless of what you think about whatever went on in the Democratic caucus, You have nothing to do with the Democratic caucus because you're part of the executive branch. It is not your decision.
Motion to poll the Democratic caucus.
Not a person to poll the Democratic caucus. You don't have the, it doesn't matter. You don't have the
Motion to poll the Democratic caucus.
Legislator Baines, a little decorum, please. You're the one concerned about the quorum, and Legislator Felder has the floor.
I second the motion for a vote.
Okay. Let's go to chronology of this.
I second the motion at this moment for a vote.
Let's not relive it, please.
Let's go to the chronology of all this.
Mr. President, you've already said what you said.
Hold on. We had a meeting. There was an agenda.
Who called the meeting?
Hold on.
Who called it?
Point of order, Mr. President.
Hold on.
Who called the meeting?
Let me finish. There was a caucus meeting because the county attorney wanted to brief us on that on the lawsuit that the sheriff's department was settling. I called the meeting. We had an agenda. Now, if you understand Robert's rules, in order to change the agenda, put something on the agenda, it's not on the agenda, take a two-thirds vote of the caucus. That was never requested. They attempted to put something on the agenda, or asked me to vote on something, to put something on the agenda that was not on the agenda. I said no. A vote on the caucus was not on the agenda. None of that was on the agenda. Second of all, they attempted to take a vote to give somebody a position that wasn't vacant. So they hope that, first of all, the entire process, even who were possible, they are telling an outright lie. They're telling an outright lie, and that's all 9 of them are telling an outright lie. An outright lie. And they know it. And they say it with straight faces, above faces, telling people they had a vote. They did not have a vote. Legislator Marr was there, I was there, Kia Fetlazi, Lee, and Flagler Mitchell. They didn't take a vote. And so they still say they took a vote, and then they said they took one by email after the fact. But they come in here and say they had a 9-5 vote, and now Mr. McCann says 9-10. It doesn't matter. The charter says that when I'm mayor, that reorganization takes place after every election. There is no other provision for anything else. So the fact that they may want me gone because I will not bow down and kiss the ring of Adam Bello and let him run the caucus the way he wants to is not, and they choose to be subservient to him, is not a reason to remove me as leader. But when you want complete control and want to act like a dictator, and you have mealy-mouthed and weak and spineless people, and as the members of a caucus who want to go along with that stuff, they take a freshman legislator because none of the 8 white people have the guts to take the leadership because they know what they did was racist. So they take a freshman legislator who barely knows her way around the building and say she's the leader to cover themselves. When you have legislator Morelli, who's been here for 9 years.
Mr. President, point of order.
Hold on, let me finish. It's been here 9 years.
I am not insulting you, sir, because a freshman legislator has done more than you did in 9 months.
Hold on, let me finish.
Point of order.
They chose you because you're Latino. It covers them.
Legislator Felder, what's your point of order, Legislator Roman?
They call you, they put you up there, and you're happy being a token.
I called you, call me back and we can have a conversation. President Carbone, you have also said what you've said. I have questions out to the parliamentarian. If you can respond to that, that would be nice.
You and I are never going to talk.
What are we doing here?
Okay, can I speak now, or I just have a few questions. Now, Legislator McCann, Mr. McCann, are you familiar that Felder has a lawyer who has an opinion that he remains the minority leader, and Roman has a legal opinion that she's the minority leader? There's 2 opposing legal opinions in the works. Are you familiar with that, Mr. McCann?
I know that there, through you, Mr. President, I know that there it was a controversy surrounding this, but again, I would go back to my original point. We were notified by 9 of the 10 members through our HR.
That's not what I'm asking, Mr. McCann. I'm asking, do you know that there's a opposing legal opinion from Vince Felder's attorney? Have you read it? Because essentially, you're making a decision, in my opinion, you're making a decision what lawyer is correct, and I don't think you have that qualification. Now, back to my original question, who authorized the pay change between Legislator Roman and Legislator Felder? Who signed the paperwork? Because from what I understand, I'm supposed to sign it, and I saw nothing. So could you please just answer that simple question? Who signed the paperwork for the pay change? And if you can't answer it, I'll direct it to the Human Resources Department.
To you, Mr. President, the paperwork had an email attached from 9 of the 10 members of the Democratic caucus stating that Ms. Roman was the duly elected leader of that caucus. So that was the authority that the Human Resources Department acted on.
Mr. President.
So
Mr.
they
President.
have the authority to change salaries without going through the head of the department?
That's disturbing.
To you, Mr. President, no, 9 of the 10 members of the Democratic caucus have the right to elect their leader.
Mr.
No, I
President.
asked you who had the right to change the pay, not who had the right to elect the leader. Who had the right, who gave the authority to change the pay?
The 9 members of the minority caucus that supported Ms. Roman.
Now, in your experience with the county, is that the way it's usually done? That legislators can change, go through human resources and change somebody's stipend? Have you ever heard of that before?
Through you, Mr. President, in my 20 years with the county, I've never experienced anything like this in my life. So what I've experienced in the past isn't applicable to what we're dealing with now.
So have you ever experienced legal opinions? You want to disregard Legislator Felder's legal opinion, his lawyer's legal opinion? Is that what the 9 legislators want to do? They want to disregard Legislator Felder's lawyer's legal opinion?
What about mine?
Mr. President,
I did not disregard yours. That's in the equation also.
Okay, let's not forget about it.
No, I never did forget about it, but I'm trying to get an answer from Mr. McCann. So you've never had the legislators have the authority to change a pay without going through the head of the department, correct, Mr. McCann?
I'm sorry, through you, Mr. President. I have only been in this position since the beginning of the year, so I don't know what past practice has been with this. But again, we're very comfortable that
Maybe somebody in the Human
of the 10
Resources
members.
Department could answer the question? Is there anybody in the Human Resources Department that could answer that question?
No, the answer would be the same, Mr. President. 9 of the 10 members of the Democratic caucus have duly elected Ms. Roman the leader. An email to that effect was sent to our Human Resources Department, and that was the authority on which the action was taken.
So essentially, you're asking me, we're going to disregard.
Can I ask this question?
Go ahead.
Jeff, did you ever check to see if that email was if what they told you was true or not, or you accepted it because that's what Adam told you to do?
motion to poll the caucus.
John, be quiet.
Second.
My entire problem is this. There is a form. It must be signed off by either the clerk or the president of the legislature. It was not signed, and the administration basically decided that they were going to say the hell with the president of the legislature. The hell with the clerk of the legislature. We're going to sign this anyway because this is what we want to do because we want to put Felder in his place. That's what this is.
That's disturbing.
In the past, that has not always been the case.
I'm not going into the poorhouse for this, but I would suggest strongly that that's the decision is reversed because it's a violation of the county charter, and you're now stepping in dangerous territory when the executive branch is going to interfere with the legislative branch for $5,000 when there's so much more that can be done to you.
On behalf of the legislative branch, I make a motion to poll the caucus.
Second.
You understand if we pull the caucus, all 29 legislators vote. Are you familiar with that, Legislator Baines? You want that?
You want to poll the caucus.
That's not the way it works.
Point of order, Mr. President.
The caucus,
order is
excuse me, I have the floor, Mr. President. Do I
Not
not?
when there's a point of order, sir.
Not when there's a point of order, Legislator Baines. You know the rules. Point of order.
Point of order, Mr. President. Can you rule as to how it is appropriate for the caucus the caucus to be held in a full legislative meeting?
Highly inappropriate, and I would never let that happen anyways, but I had to let him speak.
But according to my legal counsel and to my interpretation of the county charter and the rules of the legislature, it doesn't matter if 9-1, 9-2, 7-3. It doesn't matter because there's no provision that allows that vote to be taken. So it does not matter if it was 9 people who don't want. It doesn't matter what they want. If they didn't want me, they shouldn't have voted me in the first place.
Is this the same attorney that lost your last case?
No, it's not.
Who lost
Okay.
the case?
No, it's not.
Who said that? Who said that about the last attorney that lost the last case?
Probably wasn't relevant, but of course when
Who said that? Who said that?
Of course, when your father
Legislator Wilcox.
Legislator Baines, did you think that was a low blow after the fact?
Of course,
What Legislator Wilcox said, or was that okay?
I'll respond to that. I'll respond to that.
Let me
No,
answer.
it was a relevant question, Mr. President Carbone. It was a relevant question.
No, it was a low blow, Legislator Wilcox.
No, it was a relevant question.
Hold on, Justin.
It was a serious question.
When your
Go ahead,
political
Legislator
father,
Felder.
can I finish, please, Dr. Carbone? When your political father is stacking the deck and playing puppet master like he's doing with this, and all you guys just fall in line like little marionettes on a string, that's what's going on here. You know, none of you said anything when he tried to get Legislator Lamar fired.
Point of order.
No,
Personal attacks are out of order in this body.
Whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. This is the nonsense that's going on here. Like I said, this is $5,000. I'm not going in the poorhouse. But if you want to interfere in the legislative branch, I'm going to interfere in the executive branch.
Okay, Legislator
Bring a
Felder,
lawsuit.
I'm
not bringing a lawsuit. I'm not bringing a lawsuit.
Oh, you could bring a lawsuit too. Okay, Legislator Felder, enough. Is there any Legislator Flagler Mitchell? Were you involved in this vote at all?
No, we was not involved in any vote. Didn't even know a vote took place, and it's disturbing because that means the administration is interfering in legislative affairs, and that's disturbing.
Any other member of your independent Black and Asian caucus? Do they have any other comment about what happened? I
do, President Carbone.
Go ahead,
This is Legislator
Point of order. Go ahead, Legislator. Go on. Go ahead, Legislator.
I guess my concern is that now the HR department has become politicized,
Yes.
and if they've done this to Minority Leader Felder, who else have they done this to? I'm calling for an investigation or an audit into the HR department, and Mr. President, and we can talk or go into executive session about what that looks like or what the next steps are. But something is a little fishy here. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Lamar. I mean, this isn't on the agenda, but I'll allow it. Any other further discussion?
Yes, President Carbone.
Legislator
This is
Baines?
Legislator Baines.
Go ahead,
You're
Legislator Baines.
entertaining of this intramural discussion regarding the Democratic caucus suggests that this is an appropriate topic for a full meeting of the legislature. And for that reason, and your claim that you are neutralized by a letter from Mr. Felder's lawyer, we can solve this problem right now. As a public body, we have a law. By the way, you passed this law, President Carbone and your colleagues, 20-9, that a minority leader or a majority leader serves at the pleasure of the caucus. And so I would suggest to you that this is very simple. We are right here in front of God and the people on this meeting, and we can vote right now. The 10 of us who are members of the Democratic caucus can have a vote, fully transparent, and we can decide who the minority leader is of the Monroe County Legislature. And so I make that motion.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Point of order, Legislator Felder.
Mr. Baines likes to call himself a historian and a civics expert. He understands the term ex post facto law. A law that's passed after I'm in office does not apply to me, just like it doesn't apply to Legislator Brew. That applies to anyone who's elected to be a leader of a caucus after that law is passed, not before. So that vote cannot be taken.
So I would ask for a point of order then, President Carbone. I would like to ask a question of the parliamentarian. Point of order for the parliamentarian.
I'm here.
Yes. Mr. Parliamentarian, you wrote a letter stating that Legislator Felder was elected for a 4-year term. Can you provide a citation? Because no one in our caucus or in county government can find a reference to a 4-year term. And I might add that we are all elected to 2-year terms. Can you clarify that for us, Mr. Parliamentarian?
Not to interrupt you, Legislator Baines, but I think that was included in Legislator Felder's attorney's letter to you.
I've also asked that question of the parliamentarian, haven't received that, so I'd love to hear it now.
It was authored by the parliamentarian who receives a salary for advising this honorable body, and I would like to hold him accountable and hear from him. Thank you, Mr. Parliamentarian.
Point of order, Mr.
The parliamentarian serves at the pleasure of the president. He advises the president, not the legislature.
Point of order, Mr. President.
So to be clear then, Mr. President, then the parliamentarian is a partisan figure. He doesn't work for the body. He works for you and your agenda.
I said he advises the president. Go ahead, Legislator Flagler Mitchell.
Come
just
on.
point of order. The question,
Really is who gave the authority?
Administration is who gave the authority to change the pay, and I think that's where that's at.
Nobody will answer that question.
Question was answered.
Not to my satisfaction.
The
Any other
Democratic
discussion?
Caucus. How were you elected, President Carbone?
How was I elected?
Yes.
My constituents voted for me.
How are you elected as president?
We had a caucus that could agree.
Agreement is not a factor for you to be considered president or considered leader of your caucus. Is that fact?
But my election was governed by the charter, and that's what we're trying to stick to here concerning Legislator Felder's grievance.
So the charter states that individuals who are not indeed legislators can vote in leaders.
Whatever it is, we have two conflicting legal opinions. This was going to have to be determined by the court. I am not going to choose sides. Apparently, the administration and the Human Resources Department have chosen a side, but I am not going to choose a side. And until I get some sort of statement otherwise or a decision from a court or a judge, as far as I'm concerned, Legislator Felder is still the minority leader.
So can I receive
You are choosing a side.
clarification from your parliamentarian in regards to the questions that I have posed? I've posed questions. Yes, Jack, provide him with some guidance.
I believe that our parliamentarian does have some questions from you, and he's going through some answers, and he will be emailing all the answers to you expeditiously.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. There being no unfinished business, Legislator Brew. Legislator Brew? Where's Legislator Brew?
He's on mute.
Now he's on.
Okay, my apologies. This honorable body stands adjourned until our next scheduled meeting, which is Tuesday, November 10th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Thank you.
I look forward to it.